First round of this session. This is called the FAOS uh, networking warm up, and you can also win some prizes out here. So, if I can request, if you can please scan this code with your phone and then try to join in. I think it's like 1 minute, and then we can start with the questions. Okay, so I think everyone is in, so I think we will go to the first question. So the first question, me someone new in 30 seconds, ask them which AI tool they use regularly and submit your answer pace. Kirti, 1, 2, 3, go. Me someone new in 30 seconds, ask them which AI tool they use regularly, submit your answer. So we got Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. Next question, please. Find someone wearing the same color as you. Ask them what AI should automate first. Rank options. Find someone wearing the same color as you. Ask them what AI should automate. So the top question is repetitive tasks. Number 2 is schedule meetings, manual data entry. Wow. Troubleshooting issues, approvals, and work. Let's go to the next question. Everybody, let's go to the. Find someone who has worked on an AI project, submit what they did. Find someone who has worked on an AI project, submit what they did. Find someone who has worked on an AI project, submit what they did. Somebody wrote, worked on academic advisor, very nice. Help desk agents, amazing. Chatbots. Okay, I think these are really good feedback. I mean, we can go to the last question. What percent of companies will deploy AI agents by 2026? What's your feedback is? What percent of companies will deploy AI agents by 2026? Most of the people are saying about 70%, 60%, 70, 80%. 100%. Really optimistic. Great. I think this is really good. 100% is here. Okay, awesome. Awesome, great. Okay, I think this is really good. Let's go to the final question. Okay, this is the bonus question now. Prize round. Okay, so this is where you win the prize. And I want my judge, Lincoln, will be here deciding that whose answer is the best. So type a quick AI joke, one line only, funniest wit. Type a quick AI joke, one line only, funniest wit. This is where you win a prize. And please don't use chat. Type a joke, type a quick AI joke, one line only, funniest words. Why didn't the AI go to the gym to work out its algorithms? AI jokes are quite artificial. Okay. Anybody else? I think we have a lot of gifts, so we need more jokes. 30 more seconds to win the prize. Where is my judge? Liquor value. Why did you I you 89? It's a Gen Z joke. Okay, Liquor now. Who is the winner of first, second? So, Liquor, which joke is my first, second, and third? Raise your hand, please, so that Liquor can give you a gift. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Doing this networking round, and now so we will now start the session.
All right. Good morning, everyone. How are we feeling today? Feeling good? Good. I'm glad everyone is here. I know it's tough. This will probably be my last January event. Probably be in March to move forward. But yeah, so we do appreciate each and every one of you for coming. We do also appreciate each and every one of you who are listening in and coming in on Teams. So I wanted to kick us off a little bit and kind of talk about something that when we're thinking through AI in higher education, I wanted to start off with, I know a lot of it, we start off with like tools, platforms, and features. We're talking about AI, we're talking about Fabric, data governance. But I wanted to talk about, and start is with trust. Because higher education doesn't just manage systems, it manages identities, opportunity, and futures, right? This is the thing about higher education in different industries, and I am so grateful and blessed to work at Microsoft in education, in the SLED organization here. Because this, lack of a better word, industry, it powers everyone else, right? Because you're educating and shaping the futures, whether you know it or not, for everyone else, right? So even if you think about it from Microsoft's perspective, right? The University of Chicago is where Satya went, our CEO. So who do you think was influenced our CEO, right? University of Chicago, higher education. That is why Microsoft is run on trust. And all of the ideals that Satya has brought to us was shaped, and I'm quite certain that he meets all the time with the University of Chicago, being a proud alum. So it's very important, everything that you guys are doing, whether you're working in the field, if you are a professor, or if you are a thought leader, if you are an AI director, if you're doing the data, anything that you're doing, when it touches, it's making a huge impact on the students and everyone else's lives and the future generations. So a student's data follows them for life. Admissions decisions shape generational outcomes. Financial aid models can determine access or exclusion. So when AI gets something wrong in higher education, the cost isn't just financial, it's human. So that's one of the biggest reasons why AI, we cannot approach it casually. We cannot approach it just willy-nilly. Responsibility and ethics makes a world of difference. So I know responsible AI gets talked about a lot, but rarely is it defined in practical terms. For all of you senior leaders that are here today, it comes down to 4 real questions. First, can we explain the outcome? So for example, if a student asks, why was I flagged? Why was I denied? Or why was I routed a different way? We have to come up with the questions and the answers for that. Second, who owns the decision? Now, AI can always inform the decisions, but leadership must still have the accountability. So, for example, we all use Copilot, or at least raise a hand. Who uses the AI in the morning? Anybody? Even if it's not Copilot, just AI demo. So, like, for example, when I'm going through my morning, I go to Copilot, ask them to make an agenda for my day. What is the most important things? At the end of that, if I miss a meeting with my bosses, who is in this room right now, do you think they're going to take the excuse, oh, I'm sorry, Pohada didn't tell me about this meeting, it prioritized something else? I don't think that's going to apply, right? So, so it's way, way important that we take accountability, we look, we determine, because at the end of the day, AI is a tool for us, the humans. So, the third thing is, are we reinforcing historical bias? In higher education, as you guys know, their data reflects decades of inequality and just changes. And AI will learn exactly what we give it. And fourth and final, are we protecting students' trust? Privacy, consent, and data stewardship, they aren't just technical check boxes anymore, right? They're ethical commitments. Responsible AI isn't about just slowing down innovation. That's not what we're talking about. It's about making innovation worthy of that trust. So when I talk to each and every one of you here, and as I've talked to other people, CIOs, provosts, professors, central IT, everyone, they all come up with the same things, right? The questions are now very different than they were, just even a year ago. So what I want to do right now is just talk about a couple of questions that are now very grounded. Is this delivering real value, or is it just delivering excitement? Can we govern this responsibility at scale? Can we secure it? And in this climate, can we afford it? And explain it when we're talking to our, committees and whoever else, what we're doing and how we're doing it, and just be able to explain it and let everyone understand what we're doing and that they buy in, right? And most importantly, does it align with our institution's mission and not just our technology roadmap, right? Because we all are mission driven in education, like I said. It's all about what we're doing for the next generation. So how is AI and data transforming higher education? Well, let me tell you what we're seeing in the short term that we've been doing this. We're seeing earlier identification of students who need support. We're seeing more personalized advising and learning pathways. Faculty is now empowered with AI copilots for research and instruction. Operations are moving from reactive to predictive. But here's the critical insight. The institution successfully implementing AI, they're doing this, it's not just the flashiest tool, it's not just what's the newest thing, 4.5. They're the ones with the strongest data foundations, the cleanest governance, and the healthiest culture. Those are the institutions that we're finding and seeing the most success in. So AI doesn't replace human judgment, it just augments discernment. So I'm going to close with this. We've always been prepared in higher education to prepare others for the future. AI does not change that mission. It just raises the responsibility and it raises the bar. So this is a leadership moment for everyone in this room. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Right? So what I want to do right now is think about the future and how we're shaping it and how we're going to be proud to hand it off to that next generation. So as you guys are networking and we have Microsoft here, we have everyone here for partners, and as you guys are sharing what works and what doesn't amongst your institutions, I always want to say thank you because you truly are making a difference. And this is why we're all here in this field of higher education, believe it or not. It is very, very important what we do, and I'm certain that each and every one of you share my passion. So with that said, I want to turn it over to Mustafa.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jill. So now we will just go through the database agenda. So we will, after we, there will be Lincoln who will be talking about Microsoft Copilot. Then we will have a panel discussion, and we have members from Roosevelt University and also the Border University. So thank you so much for joining us today. And then we will have a session on Microsoft Fabric after that. And then we will have the launch. Yeah. So I think if I just quickly, if you see the shift, right? So with every day of computing, you have seen that there is a change on how we do work, how we learn, and how we do our work, right? So if you go from the PC era to the internet and the mobile, and now we are in this basically AI, right? A gamma era. What we have seen is that the way which we used to do work in the PC era and the software and the hardware that we use when we migrated from the PC to the internet era, there was a shift, right? So there is a similar shift happening right now when we are going to this basically AI. So if you recall, and right now all the traditional software, all the logic is being recorded. There is all the data which we have right now with sites like SQL Server, right? And the way that we get the data out of the SQL Server is writing Apex SQL queries. And all of our workflows are, programmatically written via Java or, .NET. That's okay, they are very rigid workflows. Now we are moving from that to some, data can now do anything. It can be the video, images, files. So we are moving to this new AI platform shift. So if you think about it, if you point to this AI platform shift, what type of stack do we need, right? What type of software stack do we need for that? So this is the 5-layer AI stacks which we have. So at the bottom of the stack, you see we have energy, right? Above the energy, you have the GPUs and the servers, right? Above the chip and the hardware, you have the fiber skaters like Azure, Google, AWS, etc. And then above the hyperskaters, you have your models, right? Like the OpenAI, you have Gemini, you have Claude, right? And then above those models, you have your AI applications. Now these AI applications, one of that which we use and only use, some of you listed out here is ChatGPT, Copilot. So these are some of those, applications. Now, as you see in last year, okay, people have spent millions of dollars making this AI infrastructure, mapping up the data centers, the memories, the chips, right? And it is forecasted that in the next year and in the following years, there will be trillions of dollars further will be spent to build this AI data layer so that people can develop AI-based applications. Three major things happened last year. One is the agentic AI. So previously, if you go back to check it 3.5, you get this ask questions and you get the response back, right? But with the agentic AI, you can do things. You can do bookings or the reservations. You can talk to other enterprise softwares like Salesforce, ServiceNow, etc. Right, which was not possible before. So agentic AI was the very big thing. So second thing is open reason. So if you go back, people were always using OpenAI. People were always using Claude API, which were all closed models. But now there are open models available. What is the number one model, open model, which people use? DeepSeek. DeepSeek was the big J, right? So people can now download a DeepSeek. They can fine tune that particular model according to their business requirement. So that is number one. Open and reasoning is becoming very common. So it basically prevents you from vendor adopting, and it also encourages rapid innovation. Finally, the agentic AI moved just from text to more physics AI. So AI has now moved to more chemistry and physics years. I just saw this white paper that there was a forest and there were some trees, and those trees were like dying, and how Claude model got used the data from the soil, from the climate, from the plants, and it came up with the plan that it made the whole plants go much better. So I think it is now moving away from open big to just from ChatGPT to more in the AI world. And I think those people who went to the CES show about a few weeks back, there are now robots that can do cooking, they can do cleanings, they do this. So I think those things will be coming out pretty simply. So, and finally, a lot of people say that okay, the AI will stick about jobs, right? So if you remember, the AI came inside the radiologist field about 9 to 10 years back. And what we have seen that the radiologist job hasn't gone away. In fact, it has gone up. What has changed is that AI is now doing the image analysis. AI is now doing, anomaly detection, and human is more focusing now on patient care, the diagnosis. So the role is changing, right? You see before AI, entire thing was never now. Nursing and healthcare. There is 5 million nursing shortage inside US. So AI now helping in that field to basically provide documentation, charts, and summarization, so that nurses can focus more to the bedside care. It was not happy before. So what is happening is that understanding how AI reshape roles by separating core value from routine activities. So all the repetitive tasks will be done by AI, and so AI should be seen as an amplifying human purpose by automating repetitive tasks. And finally, I think today we will be talking about how this fine-tailed stack can bring reality inside the higher ed with the Microsoft Unified Platform. So we will be talking very deeply on Copilot, Microsoft Fabric, and also Azure AI Foundry. So with that, I think I will now pass to Lakim and panel. Okay, so we will be doing this panel discussion first now. So I would like to invite Rich, Kamshar Burshar, and Anil Kumar, so that we then start that.
Eduardo? Tests. You can give it to him. Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you all for joining. Super excited about this conversation. We have two leaders and pioneers in this space, peers of you all, to talk through not necessarily the solutioning, but maybe the approach, a higher level view of how to tackle the current sake and how to approach innovation across your institution. So first, maybe an introduction for both of you, and maybe talk through your roles at your institution and the solutions that you've been working on.
Sure. Just to get a sense of this crowd, can I get a show of hands of how many of you in higher education are currently career?
Okay, so great. Thank you.
So my name is Neeraj Kumar. I'm the Vice President and CIO at Roosevelt University in Chicago, just about a little less than a mile. Easy walk from here. In my role or in higher education grade, CIOs are automatically brought up as taking ownership of AI space, cybersecurity space, or anything that is not exactly functional in nature. They would automatically post to the CIO. So in that capacity, started thinking about, like you started thinking, what ways we could bring awareness and the literacy to the campus. We got lucky in partnering with one of the thought leaders and trainer in this space. So we brought the Visual Art Campus. I work a lot with the Education Advisory Board and EA4. And so they had these individuals that they share with us. And as part of that, they helped us develop a strategy for a strategic plan. I dislike those, but a strategy for the institution. And
He helped us take you right at a high level. What is it? So we developed a strategy.
Get into right now. And then quickly we realized that the strategy in year one
As what is considered thing that what is visually applicable of basics. And once we brought to a point where there was a general sense of a
then we started talking or okay, the most important thing was not to start to literally allow per office per wanting can we get AI, can we use Gemini, can we use this?
And he said, okay, that comes later. Let's go to these steps first. And
That's how our journey started. So
Hi, my name is Vanshad Wabasher. I'm a professor of computer science and artificial intelligence at DePaul University. And I am also the director of DePaul AI Institute, which is an interdisciplinary institute focused on interdisciplinary research and educational programs related to AI. Not just about AI, but also implications and various applications to AI in the society. As part of that work, I've also been involved in a lot of discussions at DePaul University, running also to Roosevelt, our downtown campus is next to as well, I guess. And as part of that, there's been a general discussion within the university and others, this centralized effort to try to look at AI as kind of the institutional change initiative rather than just kind of rolling out tools, for example, or technology. And that takes a lot of efforts. And I guess you get into the details of it, but there's one thing I can kind of say that we've learned in the past year or so working on this is that the biggest obstacles are not actually about technology. It's about culture and organization and dealing with some of those aspects, right? And then once you try to accept that fact and try to work on it, then the discussion of tools apply for it.
so taking me back to the beginning, right? When first starting having conversations with your institution, you mentioned cultural, but specifically, what were some pitfalls that you ran into? What were the roadblocks that you ran into as you first started having these conversations around strategy, around AI and transformation?
So at the Roosevelt, I guess people's focus was what they were listening to on their news channels. So it was a lot of the negativity was coming out first by cheating, plagiarism, and as soon as those words came out, faculty were all raising their hands that this is not for higher education. It will not allow us to really teach the students effectively or for students to learn effectively. And anytime you hear about the negative stuff, right, those are the edge cases. That's what make the news. So those were some of the initial responses that we got, primarily from faculty. From the staff side, it was like, yeah, there's all neat stuff, but how does it help us at an institutional level? How does it help my office or my team? So there was a lack of, genuine use cases that they saw where they felt like this is something that will be truly useful for them. And I think that's where the exercise of getting a large cross-section of the institution together in a summer retreat to try and understand what is, then go through the literacy exercise of guiding them what can it do for you, what it should not use for those efforts, helped us again get the team on the same page, or at least a similar page. There's still those edge cases that are out there with a lot of concerns, but the point or the cultural thing that you made is excellent. Like it's again, people, the instant reaction is to start thinking about tools that they start thinking about, right? I put in this question, I got the long answer, and that's what the discussion erupts into versus long answers that we receive. So that's how the initial conversations went. And it took a lot of effort to get that into a more productive space. And we used a lot of data. We had initially set up a student success chat or basically virtual assistant that would answer questions for students. And we were able to demonstrate to them that there wasn't just an increase of questions coming to that, but also we had a simple capability that was added to the bot so that as the student would get answer, they would be able to click one of those buttons, and how the response set would treats that improved significantly over the first year. So those are some.
I'm sure, did you face similar objections, and how did Jared said you should face them?
Yeah, and I say it continues, right? So you have people who are very much opposed to, I mean, from the perspective of faculty, there are faculty members who just, I don't want to use AI, I don't care. Hide in the sands, stay my hand sand or that. But students are using it, and people are using it. So you have to deal with that fact, and you have to deal with policies and guardrails and this. So, but going back to your original question, I think some of the key pitfalls, or I would say challenges, not necessarily pitfalls, that we are facing is, and it goes back to this idea of organization or cultural change, is that university is just, and most of you know, are kind of like, I don't want to say decentralized, I'd say federated kind of organizations, right? There are lots of different stakeholders and entities. There's staff, there's research labs, there's, of course, the whole across academic part of the institution, there's the administration. So all of these different entities have different needs and different concerns, and try to deal with all of that is, something that's, you have to, this is why it becomes sort of an institutional change, that kind of an initiative, rather just rolling out this technology here. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is, you mentioned use cases, and I think that's really important to develop the right kinds of use cases. But people can't come up with the use cases unless they understand what AI is, some understanding of AI. So AI literacy, both at the staff level, at the faculty level, and not that, all faculty are not computer scientists or people who have had training in AI. So if you're teaching literature, for example, teaching sociology, understanding what AI can do and what AI is and what it is not. I think just understanding those things will help you come up with the right kind of use cases. And that takes efforts, right? So it's not just up to the individual faculty member or individual staff member to say, hey, I just came up with this great idea. You have to actually work with people to try to bring people together in an interdisciplinary kind of a way to try to guide them about, developing some of their ideas into something that can be solved or addressed by using AI tools. That's a difficult process, and you have to do that across students, staff, and faculty. You have people that are using AI, but they're using it, for example, without any kind of guardrails, right? You've had situations where a staff member may have put sensitive information into ChatGPT, for example, not using kind of a tool that might have enterprise data protection, so things like that. Students and faculty are doing that all the time, right? So developing that framework and those guardrails and having some institutional standards that are well communicated and then using training on top of that, try to instill some of those standards. Those are some of these chapters.
I just add one more thing to that. And your discussion, or if you remember a conversation that we had about before, which was, and a lot of these concerns were coming up while faculty. One of the things that we pivoted towards was that we hear all of that, and that's not correct. But this is about, we are about preparing students for the future. So it's not just for faculty anymore, right? And even though the concerns are valid, So once we refocused the conversations to towards to set the tree about preparing them, because they are going to the marketplace where they'll be competing with other students who will be better prepared, other posts who may have been in jobs currently and switching careers and things like that. So they're being a lot better prepared. So let's make sure that we are prepared that fully. And I think that's the right way of working. So you've developed the framework, the strategy, you created cultural buy-in across the institution, and that includes developing AI literacy across the institution. Right, and that's an ongoing process, right? That's not a one and done. This is ongoing. As long as the AI tools exist, we'll be working through that, right? So talk to me the technical leaps from a data foundation layer to the AI application. Which comes first? How do you approach that? And how do you use those tools to accelerate your AI adoption?
So when we started this, as I mentioned, our first use case was a student-facing chatbot, virtual assistant. And what we quickly realized was that in our tests, while the answers were great, students don't necessarily ask the questions that's saying it. And they will limit their questions to a few sexual, like we had worked closely with a few offices, and all of that information was perfect. But as soon as it into their hands, they were asking everything about everything. And it gave us a clear message that one, it has to be exceptional. Content is the new data. And if it's written in multiple ways, if a question can be asked of and if there are competing answers in our knowledge base, because one answer is provided by one office, another answer is provided by a different office, then the bot is not that great that it's going to be able to tell which is correct. So it'll be confused. It's likely to give correct responses. So it was important to get all of them together and ensure that all of that content is vetted and there's clear accountability and ownership between departments on who sort of review it. And then on a daily basis, there was a team member who was assigned to reviewing all the answers that had a thumbs down associated with it. So they would quickly share to the appropriate office, and they would then go and correct the data. And when we were able to demonstrate to the entire US community that look at the positive response, once the information is corrected, again, that helped the mind a lot. And that really also sent a message to my team on the IT side that we just rolled it out where we had to rely on so many other offices. But once we start applying this to our ERP or our data lake, like, it's going to be even more important to have all that information well-defined and correct and agreed upon. And even though we had a data warehouse, but it was used for maybe a couple dozen different business purposes, not all the content from all of the to be disparate systems was coming into it. So we knew right away that it's going to be critical to pull out that, but more importantly, to revisit the data governance practices and strategies and policies to better articulate, better mark the data. And so that exercise was almost a year of exercise for us to go through that. And then a lot of rehab had to be done. A lot of different task forces had to be set up. One focused on enrollment side, one focused on student success and detention, online engagement, so on and so forth. So then through all of those efforts, and some of these are still going on. But the end result was that the dashboards and the capability that produced after that were things that people appreciate and found that they are better. They're much better off today than we were, even though we are similar case. I don't know if I answered all of your questions, but I have it. No, it's perfect.
Yeah, so I think I concur with that. From a centralized perspective, the work that is done as part of dealing, for example, with prospective students, through advising students, through all those things, you're back to a lot of data that can potentially be integrated in a more cohesive. And once you have that, you can maybe use AI tools or AI agents, for example, to try to do all sorts of things. But broadly speaking, I think data is very institutions, most universities, there's a lot of siloed data. So it's not just the central data that exists about students, for example, who are advising and things like that, but there's also, course data portion. It's research data. There is data that's, part of the interactions that the individual faculty represents. And it's not completely clear, when people start adopting AI tools, often it happens in a bottom-up fashion. So it happens in a research lab, it happens in a classroom. That was in a single department, for example. And so it percolates up, but at the same time, you want to be able to, at the university level, have some kind of governance that addresses some of the potential risks that issues involved with those things. So get back to your question, I guess. Data comes first or, platforms come first. I don't think there's a clear answer. I think there's a mutually reinforcing relationship between these sets, and you cannot just stop with one and depend with one. I think you have to go back, or you also consider that there's going to be actually a tiered approach because you have these different layers. Also, the data, not all data is created equal, right? Some data is a lot more sensitive than other data. So you have different levels of risk associated with different types of data. So that needs to be part of that conversation, right?
So they're not mutually exclusive, right? Having good data and good data, right? They'll happen there. Pivoting a little bit, unless you have a lot of different solutions out there. What's your approach on an AI platform versus point-based solutions at your institutions? So initially, it was fairly fluid because it was learning. And one of the things we noticed, well, whether we like it or not, every software vendor partner we have, right, whether it's Adobe or Microsoft or Ocean, so they're all introducing AI features to their platforms, right? So that was the first, I don't want to use the word concern, but we going to better understand that, right? What could that do for us? Then we wanted to also look at us in the mirror and understand, like, how would we ever be at a point where we'd be able to do a lot of in-house development or in-house work, knowing that right now we have, and we did an inventory of all of our systems, and there were like 45 different data sources that we identified that we wanted to fill in to our data leak. We also knew that there will always perhaps be a niche approach required for certain areas, right? Because some of the platform-based solutions may not necessarily cover every, and I say, we use emphasize may not, because we just didn't know early on that we were going through this process. So among the way, there was a lot of experimentation we did, right? We partnered with OneSider as an example to do AI teaching assistant, AI tutor, and things like that. That we did the chatbot, the number of other pilots that we had going on the administrative and academic spaces. And the whole, I kept revisiting this whole concept of, while we have to go through this struggle that we went through, get to this state of being that is now something we call it not quite ever successful, never. So it did start looking at a platform-based approach. We worked with, the other thing I want to point out is all of these violence were interesting, but we weren't necessarily, or I didn't see them really making a difference. As in, they're great for the team that's using it, they're great for some of the end users or students or employees that are using it, but all these productivity improvements were not necessarily generating huge revenue implications or revenue enhancements or huge cost reductions. They were all good to have, but nothing that I would consider that was moving the needle, so to speak. Right? So that's when we started looking at platforms seriously. And the other thing we wanted to do was that we want to look at complex challenges and not just the easy problems to tackle, right? Having the chat on and all that. And they work great, don't get me wrong. And they do help. So they're available 24/7 in multiple languages and have an institution that had more LRAT and the Spanish serving institutions. So it doesn't make a big difference to all of those tools, but we aren't really see large benefits. And so that's when we started looking at the platform approach seriously. And now we are at contact passive version they're going to. And what we did again was a distribution-wide exercise. We got input from all of the areas of their
largest, biggest pain points, and then understood what is it that AI agents can help. We then have set up an AI steering committee that helped us prioritize what were those initiatives that we would tackle first, and then we put, and then one by one we started producing the results, sharing the results back to the community. About the examples that I could share is that we implemented one for a recruiting agent, where that agent does outbound calls, texts, and emails to all the prospective students. It also that students can also call, email, or text that agent, get responses to those things. One of the things I learned was that students actually do not hesitate to ask questions of agents, AI agents, than they perhaps normally would talking to a admission counselor, because they feel like they nearly can be judged. So we recorded these calls, we played these phone calls. One of the balls we played that our board trustees was an 8-minute conversation that a student had with a bot, that knowing full well that it was a bot. And it was all about better understanding programs that are offered across the and how they would be a good fit across the classroom, like we led a joining group also. It's a great story that we were able to share with the community. And once people saw the success of that and how it actually can interview, that's when a lot of the other has wanting to be part of this.
Yeah, actually, the pod also developed their enrollment management, but they developed something very similar for unit, but we couldn't see that's be able to respond. Not quite as sophisticated as you were describing, but I think it's going in that direction. And also, the other push really, in our case, is on student advising. So you're not yet at the stage of having bots advising that, but certain elements of advice. And also enable our students with disabilities, for example, resources. So there are areas where having a platform that can tap into the student at NDM was to be trained over time or tuned for a specific kind of task with specific groups of students. I think that's where it is a kind of tool. But getting back to your general question, I think there are advantages to adding the platform. I mean, you said some of those advantages, but there are also a lot of solutions. And in that, I don't think at a university you really can get away with, just a single platform that addresses all these. So the point-based solutions just sort of emerge organically. And it's very difficult to deal with it. And it results in a lot of duplication, for example, tool sprawl, all sorts of problems. On the other hand, there's a need for that, right? So because different areas, different disciplines are going to have different needs that are not always addressed by individual platforms. So you look at various platforms and, for example, what might be really good at helping with advising and maybe conversation and interactions. It may not be very good at, say, AI-assisted coding, for example. You need a different kind of tool for it. Also, individual, in many of the research that's going on in the university projects, often they need special tools and special platforms. I use, in my own research group, use variety of different AI tools and not necessarily a single pathway. So that is a problem. So I think we need a kind of a hybrid approach. What is the right way of creating that hybrid? I'm not completely sure, but I would say that university definitely need some kind of a centralized platform that sort of evens the access across lots of different areas and allows people to start actually developing solutions. On the other hand, you need some flexibility at the edges, and the specific areas, particularly individual disciplinary areas, where people can explore and experiment with different kinds of tools. But that needs to be sort of guided in a way that's not done in an irresponsible way. So it has to be subject to audits and, guidelines. That makes things more difficult, right? Having a hybrid solution is a lot more difficult than just doing one or the other. But I think that's the way it's put.
There are these aggregators. Without getting into the names, I don't want to mention one because I refer that Budavos is one of the ones I hear about more often than us. And what it does behind the scenes has relationships with all the leading pairs of AI, Gen AI, all this. But the licensor there is based on an institution. So right now it is still pricey, you might think it. but I've seen several schools, especially on East Coast, because they have a social relationship with them. They were sorry about there for the same reason that you go on very build that one. But hello that.
Actually. So we are also looking at Brutalize and a few other vendors. And they're aggregates, right? But there are some advantages to these because they do provide access to a variety of different AI models, right? So you can do experimentation. The other advantage is that at least they claim that they can do this in a safe, in a kind of, enterprise data protection. So FERPA compliance, HIPAA compliance, GDPR compliance, etc. So those are the advantages. It allows people to try to do that. But then, like any of these large platforms they're also decentralized, right? So, if you want to do some work with AI agents, for example, that's not the best tool. Or, again, AI assisted coding, for example, that not everyone had an access to, right? And maybe they'll be added, maybe they won't be added. The other problem I think I see with sometimes going with one of these large-scale and platforms and aggregators is that you get kind of tied into this platform, and then it becomes very difficult to get out if you need to. So what if something comes along that's better? And so this is kind of above my pay grade here, but I think entering into contracts with some of these companies to develop it, to get the platforms, needs to have very clear exit clauses so that you get easily, then you get out or make changes this.
So the data foundation's there, the use cases have been identified. You're starting to develop, for lack of a better term, your own AI platform within your institution. How do you balance academic innovation with and operational efficiency with the governance, privacy, trust issues that you see across?
Okay. Give me that art. Well, I mean, there's always this tension between efficiency and the governance, and on the one hand, and then on the other hand, academic freedom, for example, and shared governance. Some of these things that you add in universities, and as a faculty member, you require those things because those are the kinds of things that lead to win educational outcomes to eventually course students. But there's this tension. There should be this tension, I think, because on the one hand, you want to make sure that there are guardrails, particularly with AI, responsible use and deployment of AI tools. It's very important. Earlier we talked about sort of potential propagating biases for it. We all know what hallucinations for it. It's a variety of other kinds of ethical issues related to this use of these AI will not permission privacy concepts. So, and then there's, of course, potential legal liability, in a number of areas if you don't do the right thing. So it is important to have the governance in place as a way to try to control but at the same time, you don't want to try to, particularly in the university, stifle innovation, right? So you want to, in fact, provide the sort of capability for people to explore and experiment. That's why we're working at, for example, things like Brutalize, these aggregates to allow access to lots of platforms, but provide kind of enterprise data development preventions and some level of compliance with costs. But that's nothing up. I think the way I look at this is that I think at the high level, governance needs to be more, not so much approval based, where you just get approval to use this or get approval to this, but principles based. So you have some set of principles that you develop, and you try to convince the community of accepting those set of principles. And that includes use cases in different areas, maybe different set of principles for staff, for students, for faculty in their various kinds of interactions with or use of AI tools. And maybe some university level kind of standards about the ethical use of AI. So having those, and then at the level of principles, and then one level deeper, maybe you have the policy level, right, where you develop some sort of policies, academic honesty, for example, policies related to, use of data, things like that require looking at different types of data and different levels of this. So that becomes more granular. But then at the bottom, if you add these things in place, you can have the kind of environments where you can actually try to allow some exploration and allow people to do sort of in their the research groups in their classes explore different things. So what is about these stuff?
So governance from a centralized IT perspective is something that the always thought through and taken seriously.
But over the years, we try to still maintain that sincerity, but try to also relate better to our community, right? Because ultimately, what is it? If you're able to clarify or clearly articulate to our colleague, but then what's the most important? What are some of the most important things that they have to be careful about? Because early on, we did not write up a policy on AI treatments as much as our general counsel was asking to put up there. We're not very good at policy. If we don't know enough about it or policy. Go having a policy, sure, you can put paper, a few close it on hashtags. I can give it to you, but it's meaningless because we want to be able to include that as part of our AI literacy program can help our colleagues really understand a couple of things. One, our accountability, that if you use it, it's yours. Can be, yeah, right? Second is that you may not upload or add sensitive, and we had a good definition of that. It was sensitive data was. So what was the data that we may or may not do as part of the prompt? That those are the two key things of the administrative thing. And that's what we kept enforcing through our literacy exercises. And then on the academic side, obviously, was about that safe stuff. So we kept emphasizing that. And we have Microsoft API suite, so we also look out for things that are going for people trying to put content out in the world. So we were leveraging all of that to be sure that it was not happening. But at the same time, through the literacy exercise, the demotivation people understood that. The other thing we did was we quickly signed up as soon as it became available, the Microsoft Chat, Autopilot Chat, so people knew that that's okay what to use for all things. Other tools, we didn't say no or stutters necessarily, but we explained to them the difference, right? But that's far Android, Sparrow Android data was big is safer, you'll be safer to use that. So that's how we approached it. We also help on the administrative side, help people understand that this should actually make this easier and faster if you take the time now to pursue these governance exercises with us. And also did that, then notice the difference and say, okay, now the adaptation are there, the ownership is clear, and be worried to read it by the number of layers because what is that's changing quickly is in the past there was a lot of things that were controlled from Office of Institutional Research that do reporting up part of education or iPads and other places. So they used very, very strict definitions that were used by the CAL. Those definitions don't really mean much inside the university. So it allows us to have those discussions, say, okay, one definition that doesn't cut it anymore, right? Returning student means one thing to the government, but being substituted for it here. So we were able to have multiple definitions, and they were on context based rather than what the government wants from us. So by having these part of the governance exercise that conducted, they realized that it's actually going to help them. And again, not immediately part of the same, but at least some visual offices that partner with us and to partner us regularly. For them, it was a good exercise, and now he got much faster.
Excellent. And one final question, and before, thank you both again for your insights here. Very valuable. So let's say you're speaking with presidents of an institution and tinkering around with the idea of how to approach AI. What was a key piece of advice that you would give them as they look at the next 3 to 5 years?
So is this actually not a hypothetical question for me because I actually spoke to a former provost at Roosevelt became president as my institution, and we just were talking a couple of months ago, and he said, well, I hate it. I don't like it. I don't want to use it. I don't ever use it. And by him saying that to his president council, that message kind of permeated, and none of those senior leaders actually used it, or if they were using it, they weren't saying that they were using it. And so he had invited me over for a day to the campus and talked to they didn't have CIO at the night. And then I heard all of this. I was like, And so after that, when we sat down for lunch, had a good conversation. I said, Jim, it's not about you. That you're already a little late, but not too late. So let's start with the literacy program. I actually connected one with the same formulation we use. Get everybody trained on this. That they have to understand, because you'll be surprised. And I've seen research data published by several organizations that managers and senior leadership thinks that there's like 20% people using it. But when you survey the employees, it's might stop using AI.
And so there's this big difference and this big gap. And so the idea is let's start with that.
And that's if you already have some of these governance practices in place, great. You don't get this skin on it, or right. In their case, they didn't have a data warehouse, so that's a great place to start. Also, so having the content team ready, having the data team. So I think that's where I would start literacy, and then quickly on the data topics. Do you have a certain concern, right?
Yeah, so it's also not by political mathematics, because I did have this conversation early on with our current president, and he was very supportive. Did provide support and try to get some of the initiatives, their initiatives going. But I would say, if I was talking to, let's say, a new president came, or maybe if you go back quite a few years, you just started sort of this, this vast world of AI, sustainability. I would say that you really need to put it into place. And I would say, maybe, for lack of a better term, call it a fund, kind of like a AI operating model with some financial backing. And then identify some key use cases that you really want to tackle using AI, a student advisor, for example, or support or research, for instance. Some key things that you can tangibly put a lot of resources behind, and with accountability and people that are actually working in those areas. This takes money, of course. It's something that most institutions of higher education are having trouble with right now. But I think that's what it takes to try to really, in our case, in a practical sense, I think our current initiatives, the biggest one, aside from some things on the margins that we are trying, is AI literacy program, both for faculty, for staff, and for students. So kind of three different levels. The student one, of course, is part of the curricular process. So we are looking at everything from, SAC or micro-credentials as students take to integration of AI education in the general education program for undergraduates when they go. For faculty, we have developed already these modules that faculty take right now as voluntary. And at the staff level, it takes a bit more work, because depending on which staff group you talk to, they have different needs. So as part of my work in AI, they've actually developed some workshops that we're going from unit to units. And we do a survey beforehand, talk about, are they using AI, where are some use cases, all of these things. And the answers across the different units differ quite a bit, and it's quite a depends. But there's a lot of common out. But they're talking to these groups about responsible use, about some guardrails, about, some basic, foundational kind of knowledge about what AI is and what's not. And in other occasions, some specific pieces about specific tools. I also started doing that as part of the AI Institute with faculty groups in different units, because very early on, we realized that to really try to build capacity for research across the university in a multidisciplinary way, not just research in AI, but let's say research in sociology that involves use of AI, impact of AI on communities, for example, or ethical aspects of AI, all sorts of different. You're going to need to go and develop sort of the interdisciplinary clusters that, let's say, AI and healthcare, for instance, or AI and scientific discovery, AI and education, and so on, and bring together groups of people that are working in these areas on problems, or research problems, but they don't necessarily know how to use AI or how AI applies to that. And engaging in those discussions and bringing people together that are actually actively working in an interdisciplinary way to try to develop solutions to problems in their domain that involve potentially AI or that deal with AI in some fashion. So that initiative is something that's it's kind of for the bottom up. That's good. Obviously, Ras was saying, and the current, we call it administration has put some effort in trying to support this. So I think that's very useful as well. So top down is important to try to have those initiatives, but you need to also support some research at the side of this.
Excellent. Well, thank you both again for sharing your journey and incredibly insightful. So thank you again. Are there any questions? I think we have a question.
Thank you so much for leadership. I was curious about your AI literacy efforts. You kind of covered at a high level, particularly some of the tactics that you use. Identify with 3 different audiences. So active one, that makes 100 cents. That about students, students, big X, common sense. Put it in. Curious more about tactics, but the staff, workshops, how you got identify topics to prioritize. What does workshops look like? And the or modules look like and the gap keys perception of those modules, their voluntary adoption rate of those modules, any sort of steps that you see, to increase the AI literacy. I asked a lot like this.
So yeah. So on the student side, this is we are working on this now. So it's something that's being developed. But I think the form that it's going to take is, one is integrated something in the general education. So when you're a freshman, you come in, you should take something that relates to the AI, because the students are gonna start using AI in their classes and all that stuff. So at least it's important to provide some of the foundational knowledge about AI and some of the issues related to ethical response. So that's kind of the beginning level. But then after that, you don't want to kind of limit yourself to a single course, for example, or a single level. So what we are trying to develop is a series of micro-credentials that are stackable, and then the students have to take, let's say, there could be short, so there may not be a full course, and could be a few hours for one module, a few hours for another module, and they build on each other. So students can take them throughout their program until they graduate. So that is based on the idea, what is the knowledge about AI that we want students to have before they graduate, not just what they're doing while they're here and the courses. So that includes some foundational stuff, but then it gets into, and that part we still have to develop, is more discipline-specific kinds of areas. So people in different disciplines might not everybody's going to take the same kind of modules. So it takes some time to develop particularly the disciplinary specific stuff. We are taking a similar approach with the faculty side, and that one is already, we already have a pretty good setup, modules, and that program is completely online, so people have to, this asynchronous program, just to go through these different modules that they get, macro credential for each one of those. And the university has put in some money, financial incentives. So if you go through the full program, you get a certain, financial incentive. And you can go beyond that and actually develop a project that uses AI in your own area, and successful completion of that project as we approved, there's an approval process. Then you get an additional financial incentive by doing that. I don't think most people are doing it. The financial incentive is not really enough to make a difference, but there's been a lot of faculty staff already done this, and some are going through it now. So the advantage of doing these smaller micro-credentials also is that you can quickly and easily change the parts that you want, right? One semester course or one quarter course taught by a faculty member, it takes a long time to try to make changes. And as we know, this is an area that constantly is changing. So what we are talking about right now is probably going to be maybe not completely irrelevant, but maybe largely irrelevant in 2 years, a year. I hope I answered all your questions, but it's so.
On talk to you. I think that not sure what.
On the staff side, by the way, these modules that faculty take, those are also open to staff. And so are the financial incentive. So we have also staff that are taking some of those things. But as I was saying, the staff, what I found more successful is actually hands-on kind of workshops, but during lunchtime or something like that. which is tailored to specific units.
For our side, on the student side, what we did was we have first year seminar FYS courses that every new student is required to take, and then the other and students who transfer over there a similar course that every transfer student is required to take called TRS. So it's an 8-week course, and eight weeks IS passes 2.5 hours each, and one of the classes is dedicated to learning about AI, and so that's what we've done in now, and that's been in place for some time. In terms of what else is happening, there is a community and practice of faculty. They are working together to develop similar to what Arshad was describing in terms of post-road audits, but that's it. Nothing has been announced, and they're hoping that will get launched in the fall semester. On the SAP side, we did a number of things. It's been all the years, and we started this, but we started with the basics, and beyond that, every single audit quality they weren't required, even though we wanted to make it a required thing, but we pushed it and worked with the DPs to make it in a staff week time, so it was a 90-minute session, and every individual was invited. There was a lot of participation. I put tells you a couple 90% or 8%, but it wasn't anything less than that. So they all got an opportunity to sit through at least 3 different sessions. I started with basics and beyond into, depending on the office, like the marketing role, we were big on that type of personalization side. So the one dedicated to them, one for creatives, one for IT, things like that. So we did a number of those sessions, each areas, just so they have an opportunity to listen and understand how they could potentially leverage V6. And then the next step was based on their wishes. So if some of them came forward and said, give more, then they wouldn't happen. So, but only about a couple of them came forward and said, you need more time.
Anybody has any other feedback or any other questions?
Hello? Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. Okay, so next we have Lincoln on Microsoft Copilot. Good morning. This has been fruitful for me so far. Hopefully, as for you, I see the note takers still in the room, which I feel like is a technique from a bygone era. It's still strong for the Chicago White Sox team in the front row, being good students. Well, nice to meet you. I haven't met you before. My name is Lincoln Hughes. I've been lovingly and sometimes unlovingly described as an impatient optimist in my life. And in the next 20 minutes, my job is to kind of build upon what we've spoken about so far today about building your AI operations. And a little background about myself before I jump into it to ground the grad student humility of coming to you today. I am a 4th-generation teacher. Soon to be 5th. I think my first grade daughter told me the other day she wants to grow up to be a gym teacher, which is really aspirational for a first grader, but and she can do it. And so I started out my education career not too far from here, actually, teaching summer school at TPS, state of the dormitories of ITT, where they don't have air conditioning in the summer. So it was a hot, sweaty summer for me and all the middle schoolers I taught. After teaching, I was lucky enough to win Education Teacher of the Year from the Sprint Corporation. Joined from there, this public policy, had a really lucky and successful stint promoting universal pre-K in 13 states with an organization, and from there joined a ped tech startup. That was really fun. And someone in this room commented here at a conference, and she explained to me why Microsoft would be a good appropriate spot in the next spot in my career. And I was like kind of saying like, well, a really good teacher and decent public policy, do this ed tech thing that's pretty fun, and they got ping pong in the lobby. And she explained to me, she's like, if you're ready to amplify your impact and empower some of the most important organizations in the world, you should join the Microsoft team. So thanks, Beth, for convincing me to join the Microsoft team. It's been all rainbows and sunshine since then. And really my job is to help professionals and mission-driven organizations with objective analysis and actionable insights to achieve their AI goals. And with that kind of aspirational goal, I get to meet some of the world's most important institutions around social mobility, around international research, the home of astronauts, all sorts of things, big and small, that are really important. And I think the AI moment that we're all sitting in and trying to get our arms around is just a really important chapter
that I think we should all be grateful to be part of. But with any good challenge, there's not a worthwhile adversary facing us. And as you can see here, it's no biter on a small screen, so don't think you need your readers out for this. This is the challenge you all faced each and every day. I think during the fireside chat we had before, I think we kind of got our arms around this a little bit, that the people in this room have had not only organizational, operational challenges, they also faced this like landscaped, a daunting tidal wake of organizations out there trying to solve the problems for you. Whether it's infrastructure, governance, large language model wrappers that will tie your shoes for you, or whatever the latest innovation is in AI, I think it's really difficult. And I don't admire your positions most days because I know you're facing challenges trying to decide what your landscape and your AI platform will look like, not only from a governance, security, but also from a cost perspective and change management perspective, which the CIO before did a really good job of articulating the nuances of that. And so with that challenge, we really want to help you the next 15 to 20 minutes understand that there is a pathway to doing it. It might seem simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. And I want to help you understand that there are ways to do this in organizations that have done it just like yourself. So we have the challenge of what we're facing today. Exciting. I don't know. Sure, I was kind of overlooking one of my colleagues' inboxes before, and every professor, every faculty member, every staff member, every student is out there on LinkedIn, X, whatever social platform they want to be on, and they're seeing the latest and greatest of what an AI could do. And that's really difficult. I know that you're inundated with both people who are thinking AI can revolutionize the world, but also inundated with the president of an organization that says, AI is a passing fad. Probably neither of them are 100% true, but at the same time, I know you all want to be able to accomplish the mission and the goals that are chiseled into the front of your buildings with solutions that are going to impact your most important priorities, whether that's again, social mobility, whether it's research, whether it's speed to lead on your emission cycle, whether it's solving the healthcare crisis in nursing that I know Ryan and that talent team are trying to tackle every day. And being able to really be these institutions that our society honestly needs to uphold what makes our cities and our states and our country as good as it can be. And so at Microsoft, we definitely share your vision, because our mission is to empower yours, and to be able to look at some of the things like you see on the screen here around what we're trying to accomplish. And we have these common aspirational goals. I know this isn't 100% accurate for everyone, but I try to, be able to speak to the audience a little bit with some of these examples. And we know these examples are not only a technical problem to solve, a processes problem to solve, but also, most importantly, probably people challenge to solve. And being able to, get through, I think someone made a good joke about your legal counsel having an AI policy, and your student senate having an AI policy, and your staff senate having an AI policy, and just all the committees that you have to navigate and be able to come in there as sometimes a voice of truth, a voice of reason, a voice of implementation, to be able to do these common universities priorities. And I think that Microsoft is uniquely positioned in our strong partner ecosystem, whereas cyber being the crown jewel of that, of being able to help you navigate those things so we can get to the things that we want to see around, 6-year graduation rates going in the right direction, first-year retention rates going in the right direction, student economic impact going in the right direction, research dollars going to worthy causes in your institution. And we won't have to do that in a modern way that is enterprise ready, right? You can't just be something you saw on Twitter last night, implement it tomorrow. I think we spend a lot of time with, I saw my, president one time, a long time ago, was able to say, like, my daughter showed me how to do this thing on ChatGPT. Why can't we do this for all of our students? And it's not that simple. And to be able to come at you with a very pragmatic, repeatable, proven process of how to do these ideas, scale up the pockets of excellence that, DePaul and Roosevelt were sharing just a minute ago. The future is definitely here, even if it's not widely distributed quite yet. And there's a way to scale up all the good things that we can do and want to do and frankly should do. And really what I think comes down to mine is starting with the end goals that you have. Each institution in here has a different flavor of what these might look like. These are just a random sampling of just looking at some of your mission and the strategic action plans, but it's working backwards from your mission critical organizations is going to solve a lot of your problems. I think when distractors, whether it's faculty, presidential, maybe even people in your IT teams, say like, well, AI can't do this thing, so it's so fat, so like we shouldn't do it. And really starting with real business problems that you want to solve and be able to measure the impact of these initiatives is where we see good versus better implementation plans. So just examples here, this is more or less a template that we use in our playbook to be able to take your mission-driven goals and put them into a measurable, actionable, pragmatic way to go through and be able to do those things like AI literacy, to do those things like data structure, to do those things like a student chatbot, and that's not just for financial aid, or different chatbot for emissions and different chatbot for that's connecting to your LMS. But how do you have that AI feature that's proactive and has all the data sources with personalization to be able to meet that student when they're stressing out the night before they have to register for classes, but they're also worried about making their tuition on time or trying to understand their student work policy. And they're probably going to do that at a time when their admissions team is not working because they're humans too and they're working 9 to 5. And they're going to do that at 11:45 at night, a couple of minutes before he has to register for classes. And we know those are really critical moments for young people and where we see a lot of drop-offs and no-shows and students that are not content. That eventually lead out, through a lagging indicator of things that we don't want to see. Again, students being either dissatisfied or don't see the value of your institution anymore. And that's the same thing with faculty and staff members who aren't able to get what they need in the time they need it. And these are the problems that AI can solve. So breaking down your goals, objectives, your focus areas, and your leading indicators. Leading indicators are different than lagging indicators. Lagging indicators are often, and I know be recorded, but that's what's on your presidential strategic plan. Things like wellness, 6-year graduation rates, research dollars. Some of those things show up 6, 12, 4 years down the line. What you really want to think about your goals is like, how can we look at something that, can be solvable or measurable within, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and be able to start seeing these leading indicators of what universities can do. And I'm sure everyone reads Ethan Mollick. I know he's seen as a really thought leader in higher education, as a Ward professor. If you don't follow him, his Substack, his LinkedIn, he's just a machine. He's got a really good book out there as well that seems dated, even though it was written like a year ago. But he had this phrase he built coming back to a lot where it's he encourages people in higher education, especially what I think is ubiquitous advice for everyone, is don't ask AI what it can do for us. Ask AI what it can do for you. And be able to really think of the models and all these different solutions as things that are going to service you and not you servicing the model. And think as technically capable and technically curious people, which are showing up on Microsoft 10 degrees or whatever I did about today, probably in that category. We're really coming with that mantra, that mindset into your different, cross-functional groups, whether it's committee, whether it's having lunch with the colleagues, whether it's meeting with the president, whatever it is, to really think about starting with pushing them as actually that what are we trying to do? But your institution's probably goal is not to have more time. The goal is probably to solve a critical societal problem, whether it's mobility, economic mobility, job readiness, workforce development, or research, or a litany of other things that your institution's trying to solve. And really starting with the problem that you're trying to solve that can be measurable, that can be validated, that can have a roadmap to make it happen. And I know that's like asking a first grader eat their vegetables first, but I think that's really the goal of what you all have to do and part of the challenge you have to solve is to do that not only in elegant, graceful way, but also in a really practical way that drives you maybe sometimes out of your comfort zone and really holds everyone to a higher standard of starting with their end in mind. And so we come to those conclusions not because we know the answers or we've actually, have a silver wand that can tell you exactly how your AI operating model should look, but really because we're starting to see across the world, but most locally here in the United States, examples of R1 institutions or other institutions are able to really ideate, plan, and deploy AI at enterprise scale. 2 examples here, and I can tell you that they're no different than you all. I can tell you that a year ago, they're also, making fun of the word, like, why is there 50 Copilots? But like University of Kentucky is one example we have relatively locally. They're able to, their higher education and academic medical center, leading healthcare provider in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and being able to have a wall-to-wall partnership across their university and their hospital systems that aligns to both their initiative, Wildcat, so of course it's Cat AI, and being able to do 2 things for them. One, democratizing access to AI, whether you're a faculty, staff, student, healthcare provider, or anyone else in their system. And the second thing they're able to do is able to establish themselves in the Commonwealth of Kentucky as the economic hub of AI innovation. So they have industry partnerships coming to them, which is part of their strategic plan, being able to have these, this need of their industry partners across the state of being able to have a pipeline of talent, because their institutions or their industry partnerships need AI and skilled people in AI as much as anyone else, and also being able to thought leadership around where the hockey pucks go. And the third thing around the Kentucky partnership that's repeatable and not rocket science, but being able to do it takes a lot of hard work, is being able to equip every version of the AI assistant and every workflow with an agent. And we're here today largely to talk about data governance, data platform, what Rail Cyber is uniquely equipped to do. And that is largely a goal of having your data, your proprietary, regulated, mandated DNA of your organization being accessible wherever a person needs to use it, in whatever modality they want to have it in. And working with a partner is really important for that to happen, because it's a very difficult thing to do. I think for people, sometimes even myself, saying like, why doesn't it just work? And I asked my colleague Richard, and he's like, well, there's all these contingencies, and this is on-prem, and this is in this, and this is in this piece of software. And being able to do that so the end user just has access when they need it, when they want it, is really important, and we're able to pull that out. And University of Manchester, does anyone know why University of Manchester is important in the history of AI? Once a teacher, always a teacher. Had to have that pop quiz. So University of Manchester, hold the Turing test, which up until about six months ago was the definition of AGI. Since all the models have now just sprinted by that test, and there's countless models that can do the pass the Turing test now, it's now kind of an obsolete test. We're having a new definition every day of what AGI is. But University of Manchester, whole of AGI, one of the world's most predominant AI research universities, also has partnered with Microsoft, their partners, to provide equitable access around AI to, I think they have 65,000 faculty, staff, and students. And we're able to pull it off, just like what the roundtable discussion was before, around being able to educate, align cross-functional groups around one unified goal, which is whatever that cross-functional group was looking to do, whether that's, again, like student outcomes, research, operations, and then being able to do that in a sustainable, transparent way with ethical AI frameworks. They chose Microsoft as a partner largely because of trust. And we don't take that lightly, because I think that's a really important thing as we're thinking about some of the most sensitive parts of our business, being with a trusted partner and solid data steward. And just kind of, I threw this in your, as I said in the back earlier, just some of the conversations over coffee this morning for some of us, of really looking at where else has the road been paved around AI use cases in higher education. I think it's sometimes, a blessing and a curse to say AI can do everything. At some level, that is true, but also the curse of that is it's not easy. And be able to look at these institutions, some have, IT staffs of a couple dozen people, some have a couple hundred. And so we included all these on this slide because we're able to show the effectiveness and pathway to doing things like powering student success, transferring teaching and research, being able to cover operational inefficiencies and improve cybersecurity. And with the power of AI and the power of the Microsoft platform, we were able to do these things and now component to them as WIC. So if you ever want to talk to someone, Be sure the Australia team might be a little bit late at night or early in the morning, but all these customers are willing to talk to you all, because I know that means a lot, not just coming from the Microsoft person, but for other institutions as well, which is super exciting, and we're super proud of it. And as Afil mentioned at the kickout call, our CEO, I think when I heard this, saw this for the first time like a year ago, I was like, wow, that's kind of ambitious and oversimplification. But really thinking of all these solutions that we're looking at, agents, platforms, modality, workflows, really what the end user, the silent majority of your end users need is organizing interface to be able to pull these things together. Because what innovations we're talking about today, we're probably going to have a longer list next week, and definitely a longer list next year of what AI can do. And for your end user, think of the digital inequity that you could create for them if you're going to have them toggle between 10, 15, 50 apps to get what they need throughout their experience, their digital experience, does create digital inequity unless there is a galvanizing aggregate level interface that you can secure, manage, measure, and that's where Copilot does. And so we believe at Microsoft, the technology should come to the person, and the person shouldn't go to the technology. And I think anything you see when we're thinking of that eye chart on the first slide, that's creating digital inequity. If we're asking someone to go to this platform for this thing, this platform for that, there's always going to be edge cases. There's always going to be different use cases that people want to do. But if we're thinking of what is the foundational piece to it, I think it's a compelling thesis, an aspirational goal that our CEO put in front of us a year ago, saying, why do we need to leave Copilot to do this thing? Why do I need to leave Copilot to do that thing? How can I bring all these workflows, our generic interface, our agents? We need to be able to have our overarching goal to bring it back to the end user, because our end user, most of them, common people in this room, don't really care to toggle between 5 different applications a day, let alone 50 applications as the AI world matures. But really being able to have an organizing layer that's going to be your end users with their app every day, which I think everyone in this room, all your knowledge workers are touching Him 365 today, and bringing that data, bringing the AI to them, and not them having to look to the AI is super powerful, and I think reduces friction, and which allows us to meet our goals. The Copilot control system, little outside today's focus, but that is the layer of the security, the analytics, understanding that everyone can have their own opinion, they can't have their own facts. So our president comes to you and says, is this initiative working or not? You can show them the data and saying, this is what we're doing. This is the time savings. These are what people are using it for. This is how they use that, how they process payroll before. Here's how they close the books at the end of the month previously. And now being able to use AI in different use cases in really tactical, practical ways allows you that transparency and that visualization, which I think helps out bring your platform into one pane of glass that allows you to control, manage, again, analyze what is actually happening in your environment. And that's super powerful and exciting. And I think people Mustafa and I have had hours and hours of conversation on how to do that better, and how to take some of these awesome point solutions that we're building or buying, how we bring them into Copilot so we can manage it a true way and start realizing some of the powers that we have, not just in pilots, where we have self-selected groups of people who are technically literate, technically capable, technically curious, who are typically our AI pilot users, let's be honest. We're really bringing it to a person that maybe is on the fence, maybe is on the wrong side of your attention rate. Maybe is the researcher who just needs some help getting these RFPs off the door so they can get the grant money they need. Maybe it is the HR person who is just overwhelmed with the inbox during open enrollments, and being able to help them augment and take out some of the Monday tasks of what their day-to-day activities be, so they can worry about but work on more higher valuable tasks throughout their day. And again, like I said, and I don't think it can be, underemphasized, the importance of security compliance around your most precious resource, which is your data. And being able to make sure that it is wrapped in enterprise-grade security that is the most commonly used platform in higher ed, most commonly used platform in Fortune 100 companies, and being able to take that tool stack that's always improving, always getting better, and being able to meet some of the concerns that our CISO, our Chief Information Security Officer,
surveys has, where they're worried about data leaks, they're worried about risky AI use, worried about governance, worried about ethical use. And being able to have those guardrails in place both allows innovation, but at the same time allows you to not be worried that you're making the newspaper the next day because someone lost data or went to a jurisdiction or a country where it's not properly stored or what have you. And so being able to walk and chew gum at the same time is really important. The Microsoft platform, sometimes we miss out on a feature or button or a way to create a new rainbow unicorn, sure. But we get there eventually. We always have, and we're always able to do that in a way that allows you to have an enterprise strong backbone that's rooted in data and security best practices. So back to the AI operations, it's really important to think of these things in phases. I think this chart is true today, it'll be true tomorrow, and I think it's hard to stay kind of where we're at today and then think about what is the micro steps to get into tomorrow. I think it's in our common vernacular to think about agentic workflows and automated processing, but it really starts with every success story that we have from whether it's the U.S. military, whether it's Fortune 100 companies, whether it's Microsoft itself as customer zero, is really starting with an AI assistant for every person. How do we provide democratic access that's safe and secure to every person in their organization, and then build on that foundation? As their skill level, as their demands, as their expectations of AI grows, how do we start with that rock solid foundation of being able to point them there and then build from it? And then phase 2, human-led agents. I would say a lot of people in this room, I'm guessing, are in phase 2 of thinking of, like I do every day, look at my recaps of the meetings that I missed, like I do every day, using agents to triage my inbox. Is it due for this presentation? And use my PowerPoint agent to build out a deck. Really, that is phase 2, edge of phase 1. And phase 3, as the data state matures, as the models improve, as your workflow has become more documented, of having humans lead a fleet of agents to get their jobs done. So every morning when they wake up, when they log in, it says like, here's what we got to get done today. Or here's things that took care for your overnight. Or here's things that you should think about as a student because you have course registration in 2 weeks and you haven't done your pre-break yet. Or there's an opportunity that might align to your interests for a paid internship that you can do and that's available during your schedule. And really thinking about, making sure I eat our vegetables first, getting that solid foundation, starting to build out agents that are, maybe task-based to begin with, but then like a Russia doll, stack up pop, each other down the line, where you don't have to have 25 different student agents that repeat what your org chart looks like, because your students really don't care what your org chart looks like. Your student cares about what they signed up for, to getting the education, the experiences that they deserve, to fulfilling their goals, and to be able to have an army of agents behind them that take the expertise from all parts of your org chart, but really are displayed, accessible in one organizing user interface that allows you to have both third-party and first-party solutions, either out-of-the-box agents or agents that you build on top of your LMS or your SIS or whatever sorts of truth that is near and dear to your heart, and making sure that is available to your end user, again with the mantra of not having the end user have to go to the technology, but the technology coming to that end user, reducing a layer of inequity or layers of speed bumps that gets in the way of students accomplishing what they're doing with your school, and the same goes for your employees and your staff. So I threw this in as well last night on the plane, but I'm happy the CIOs before mentioned the importance of AI literacy. I think AI literacy helps from the bottom up and top down. So bottom up and top down, and starting with making sure that we're improving how we communicate why AI literacy is important. I know that's easier said than done when you have to think of like, how does this committee agree upon why are we doing this and how are we doing this, what language? And I worked with, Kenny at Purdue that, gets on me about what logo needs to be the appropriate logo, and if it's a head dash or a semicolon, and all the small details that matter. Getting those right, that's not just a checkbox activity, that is strenuous. And then developing and determining how each of your end users should use AI. And that's a little bit big brother, I know. But I think as leaders of your institution, being able to say, like, we see the job marketplace rewarding AI literacy, so that's what our students are going to do. Or we see AI literacy being important to having more ethical behavior, so we're going to use AI literacy that. Or we're going to use, because we have great things going on at university, we need our marketing team not to be 2.5 FTE, but we need to be 200 agents. And so being able to determine and deliver on what those use cases are, super important. And then really importantly, as these things get rolled out, to iterate, celebrate. I think it's not always in the IT DNA to celebrate or to have yourself on the back or say how good these things are going, but really to demonstrate early use cases, early wins, measures of success, time savings. I think one university, the bar was seemingly small beginning from the president. Is like, we want to see our pilot users say 2 hours a week. And we're like, oh, we can do that. We can do that with like a meeting recap. But that amplified across 50,000 people is a big number. And throwing a dollar on that, not that time is always money, but on some level, that is how the ball turns. And so being able to celebrate that we save the institution millions of dollars by just having one AI pilot and delivering that out is a goal in itself. Not only that, increasing things like research dollars, increasing things like improving things like student retention rates, reducing summer bells. All those little things add up to making your institution closer to its aspirational goals is widely important. So I know this graphic is always simple, but I think there's so much to be learned from it if we do it well, of just being able to not only determine what we're trying to do, get on the same page of what we're trying to do, and then being able to celebrate when we accomplish that. I think when I see, again, good versus better implementations of your AI operating system, I see so often be not a failure of effort, not a failure of tech capacity, but actually a failure of kind of patting yourself on the back and making sure, like, those that need to know how well this is going, this is actually what's going on. And Microsoft, Royal Cyber, your comms team are all in the same boat, trying to do that in a real way to allow you to adopt, absorb, and implement a successful IT operating system or AI operating system. So to recap real quickly is, first, your current state, don't envy, it's a worthy challenge. The people, process, and technology of what we're facing today is a conversation in itself. The future state, there are similarities between all organizations here, but I think the nuances of exactly how you phrase your goals are wildly important. Microsoft wants to know, we want to speak your language, you want to speak ours. It's wildly important to get those down on paper so we have mutual purpose and mutual alignment of what we're trying to accomplish. That's critical, that's critical. The third thing is making sure we know what success looks like, and being able to define that in numbers sometimes is hard, but we do want to have bias towards the metrics of success and also quantifiable evidence as well, and non-negotiables of what you're looking to do. Obviously, ethical, security, compliance concerns, you should come up with those conversations. And definitely, I think the talent team is in the inbox right now, making sure you have some certification needed for them. I know in this room, so not ignoring your email. In the people in this room, just process. And then change management. Wildly important, we see success or failures and postmortems on pilots, implementations, rollouts, recaps, largely due to the strength change management plan. I know that's not everyone's focus area, or maybe not described in your job description, but it is your job if you want AI to be successful in your organization, is absolutely having a firm evidence-based change management plan in place. When MIT and others report that a majority of AI projects fail, there'll be an indicator of AI projects failing is lack of change management. So I want to highlight that, asterisk that, whatever simile you put on it. And then lastly, super important, celebrate an idea of, iterate of what is going well, and repeating that, scaling that up, and what things aren't going well, so learn from those. We don't want to hide our failures, because this is definitely an era of experimentation. We want to have those, usually universities have that in their DNA as well, but you want to be able to say, like, this is where it went well, here's where it's not going well, what we're going to do about it. But never hide behind failures just because they didn't go perfectly, because the lessons learned from failures are just as important as the successes you have. but the successes should be amplified up the food chain, down the food chain, to all of your levels of your organization. So you can start getting your arms around, the power and potential of AI that we see from organizations, in enterprise, in mission-driven organizations, and all those in between. So any questions you have, I try to keep myself to 20 minutes. I got 90 seconds. So 1, 2 quick questions or one deeper question.
Yeah, I guess the cynic in me says sort of, well, there's a lot that's new here. I think part of what I heard is like, it's got to be user-driven, it's got to be use case-driven, et cetera. Is that, obviously the technology is totally different at a minimum. So is that fair?
I think teal on some level, like, it's user-driven. Whether that's 100% true is, up to how you frame it. I think that user-driven for pockets of excellence, absolutely true. And the cynic in me also is going to rebuttal that and say, pockets of innovation, pockets of excellence, there's not any of the institutions that I work with, including no institution in America, doesn't have one professor trying to build a TA agent, right? Like, I think 12 months ago, that was maybe an aspirational, innovative idea, but we've proven that out, that is, both worthwhile and you're able to implement it. And so I think taking those stories, ultimizing it, I think is really more management. And also at the same time, being able to looking at that, say like, how can we scale a really good idea? Because I think in the DNA and the culture of higher education, it's kind of like, it's trust and validate. I don't think any of those case studies that I flashed over the industry, I don't think you could just say like, hey, this is what Oria's doing, we're going to do it here tomorrow. I think it has to come from your organization, have your fingerprints on it, for it to be safe. Idea also is to pass my patch.
Thank you for your time. Shaped by the quality of its inputs. We read what we sow, and AI is no different. Its intelligence is only as strong as the data behind it, making it trusted, governed, and it gives the foundation for the AI success. In higher ed, the challenge is magnified. Universities operate across fragmented student research and administrative systems and are expected to deliver better outcomes and adopt AI responsibly. And Microsoft Fabric unifies the data into a secure, governed foundation, transforming silos into trusted intelligence and enabling AI-driven impact across the institutions. So how many of you guys use Microsoft Fabric today? Any challenges you guys want to talk about you're facing today? So here are some of the challenges which we have listed that we came on.
So quick, I do want to know though, even if there's no challenges, how are you using it? I saw a couple hand trays. Anybody, even if you're just starting out, what's the question? How are you using Fabric today?
No.
Yeah.
Any challenges?
Any challenges? Sorry, I just saw a couple hands that we would have done. Yeah.
I'm not really using it. I provide access to Fabric. We have units that are using it. I think the biggest challenge for us is the cost. I use Power BI. I try to use Power BI Premium, but now using Fabric because of the cost. But we do have
units at our university that are paying upwards of $2,000 a month just to get access to use Fabric. As an administrator, we are looking at governing, because we have one data lake for the entire tenant. So I think that's my challenge. Is why I'm here. Is what are all the universities doing? Whereas we also have a recommend for governance of data with it.
Thank you. Anyone want to talk about challenges? No? Okay. So these days we are hearing a lot of excitement around AI in higher education across student success, enrollment research, and operations. But when we step back and really look at what's happening, a question keeps coming up. What's actually holding institutions back from getting real value out of AI? So Shikhar, you want to talk about some of the challenges?
Yeah, so in most cases, it's not the AI technology itself. It's not the accuracy of the models, but it's the data readiness. How ready is your data? The demand for AI-powered insights is faster than institutions are prepared to support it. So the preparedness is something where we see people lacking.
So when you say not prepared, what does it look like on the ground? Where do you think it usually breaks down?
So it usually starts with the fragmentation. The critical data that you have is spread across multiple systems, CRMs, platforms, and research tools with no single unified view. Even the data that you might be using for your AI, it could be stale and not up to date with your other sources.
So even though the data is there, it's not really working together?
Exactly. That's what fragmentation leads to. And this directly leads to data quality issues, different definitions, duplicate records, missing data, and outdated information.
So, and that's where like AI gets risky, right?
Yes, AI doesn't correct those issues, and it doesn't have the ability to do that. So the fuel that it needs to power on has to be provided by someone else. And any bias or inconsistency in this data gets scaled across every insight that is being delivered.
So what's the takeaway institutions should be thinking about?
So AI success starts with a strong foundation. Without unified, governed, and trusted data, AI initiatives are at huge risks, and producing misleading insights and losing the confidence instead of creating the impact. So this is a question for the room. We have few questions that I would like to know where we are standing. So let's see a show of hands. Before investing in AI, did we pause to assess whether our data platform was truly ready to support it? I'm pretty sure people have employed AI. Did we do that assessment? Can we see a show of hands? Yeah, I heard that in your talk, and I was like really happy that you're making that point. So see, we got three show of hands. Have we enabled the business meaning of our data through semantic layers, or the insights are still tied to the technical representation? Do we have a semantic layer in place? Exactly. You made it all. So do our leaders and the executives, do we have direct access to trusted answers, or are these insights still mediated through analysts and reports? So in order to get data and understanding of any information that you want, are you still going through your analysts or team members in between? Exactly. And are we confident that everyone across the institution is making decisions from the same data, the same single source of truth? Anyone? So if AI adoption accelerates, just imagine the scenario. Is our data governance and security foundation prepared to keep the pace? Just like all the other questions, I think it's a no. So this tells us that we are not prepared.
So as institutions start thinking about scaling AI, there's an assumption we often hear that AI will somehow simplify the data landscape, but the reality is AI doesn't clean up complexity, it exposes them. Can you walk us through why this happens?
Absolutely. So most higher ed data estates didn't evolve by design. They evolved organically over time, just like any other institution. Different teams adopted different tools, vendors, and platforms to solve immediate needs. AI simply operates on top of that complexity. So imagine the tech team 1 and tech team 2. They have different vendors. They have different data management platforms, different storage clouds, or they can also have different ingestion from different sources. It could be on-prem, some other cloud, or a CRM that they're using.
So how does the complexity look like in day-to-day?
It usually shows up as multiple copies of the same data, duplicated infrastructure, duplicated pipelines, parallel pipelines that are working on the same data, and this drives up the cost. It slows down your insights and makes it hard to know which version of your data is actually correct.
So we also hear about this, integration challenges. How does it factor in?
So imagine the interoperability between these two vendors. You do not know how do they interoperate. So more the tools, more complex integration and sensitivity comes into play. Let's say whether there is student data, financial data, or research data. All of this could be unintentionally exposed to some places where we do not want to do it.
So and from the risk perspective, what should leaders be concerned about?
Data exposure risks are significant. The more the copies, the more the unofficial or let's say distributed sources of your truth. You do not know where this data is going and who is accessing it. So this could also be termed as lineage. You might not know how and where your data is going. Whether you're using that data or the platform, that's unknown to many.
So what is the key message here?
So the message is that AI doesn't fix the problem by itself. You have to take care of the data. It amplifies with time and the growth of your data. So without a unified, interoperable, governed data platform, AI will increase cost, it will increase your risk and complexity rather than delivering the value.
Yeah.
So this slide highlights why unifying is critical to achieve success. With 68% of leaders agree that a unified platform is essential to their enterprise data strategy, data unification has clearly become a business priority rather than just a technical initiative. Even modest gains such as 10% improvement in data usability can translate into significant financial impact, more about $2 billion, an additional revenue for a typical Fortune 100 organization. While 87% of the organizations believe that AI will deliver a competitive advantage, that advantage ultimately depends on having unified, accessible, and trusted data. The takeaway is clear. You need to invest in unifying the data, better positioned to unlock meaningful values using your analytics and AI workflows. While fragmented data continues to exist, we have to limit the distributedness of the data and the impact has to be shown. So we have a slide which tries to make our point how this data is associated with each other, where we need to unify it, and how it goes within Fabric through these artifacts. We'll be going through them in the next following slides. So there comes a question. Why Fabric first and AI?
So let's have quick hands raised, like you guys were speaking about data first and then like you built the AI on top of the data. So when everyone started adopting AI, the first thing what we did was jump in and start doing a POC on AI. Did we ever think about why data is important? Like, should we start with data? Like, how many of you thought about that, like in your organization, and had a process around it? Anyone?
I have more slides to convince you on this point, but I would just like to see a show of hands. Who do you think, who all think that this is a valid point that we need to think about data first before AI?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a few more slides to convince here.
So when we talked about scaling AI in higher ed, one question keeps coming up, like should AI be the starting point or should the data foundation come first?
What we learned is that AI works only at scale when the data is already in place. That's why Fabric comes first, and it makes the base for your AI to make it trustworthy, scalable, and sustainable. So starting with one lake, you have a single unified architecture. With Lakehouse and Warehouse, you have the capability to have structured and unstructured data. With the semantic models, this basically gives you the business logic to be consistent and definitions across all reporting and AI applications to be accurate. So now when I say a student or an applicant, the LLM understands what does that imply. What does my business term actually mean? So that it gives you more accurate responses. Talking about native governance, when you come to expect with Microsoft, you expect higher security standards and governance in place. And that is what Fabric provides you. We've got built-in data governance that the applications can recognize and respect, even when responding to someone who is asking a question to your LLMs or your agents.
Okay, we talk a lot about becoming AI ready, right? So we talked about a platform that makes your organization AI ready. But the phrase gets used pretty loosely. So let's pause for a moment and talk about what does AI ready data actually mean in practice.
So it doesn't mean that you need to have more data. It's about the right foundation and the right data which is accessible, governed, and secure before your AI uses it.
So let's start with this foundation. Like, what is the first thing that an institution will need?
So the first thing that you need is a single unified data foundation. You should not have silos across systems. Everything should flow into one single platform that reduces duplication, simplifies your integration, and creates a trusted source of truth, in our case called data lake.
So if the data is centralized, is it automatically ready for AI?
Not quite. The data needs to be curated, it needs to be cleansed, it needs to be standardized, enriched, and validated, specifically for analytics and the AI workloads. So models are working with reliable outputs which have been validated by some human touch.
So we are talking a lot about this semantics and governance, right? So why does it matter here?
So shared semantics ensures that everyone in the organization is speaking the same language. Whether it's enrollment, credits, final financial metrics, semantic models, these make sure that AI interprets the same language, the same nature of business terms as we use.
So how do you summarize the AI ready data?
So AI data ready is unified, curated, semantically consistent, and governed by design. So when those pieces are in place, AI can scale without creating more risks and actually minimizing. Microsoft Fabric is central to the Microsoft Intelligent Data Platform. What do we mean by that? It's something interesting that I would like to show you. So if you look at this GIF, you're going to see that it has a unified intelligence platform which is sitting on top of unified data platform, which is sitting on top of data. So this IQ part of Fabric gives you ontology, semantic models, and graphs, which help you create the semantic layer on top of your existing data. So your role would be to ingest the data into your lakehouses, curate it, clean it, and then create the data intelligence layer on top of it using ontologies, graphs, and they go by the name. Graph gives you the relationship between entities for the LLM or the AI to understand how one entity is related to other one. And all the synonyms at business logic or business language is being taken care of by using ontology.
So we are seeing all the Fabric workloads over there. What is that Fabric IQ thing that pop up on this GIF?
Fabric IQ is what brings intelligence into the platform. It layers semantic understanding, graph relationships, and the agents on top of unified data. So AI understands not just data, but how your business actually works.
So it's just not about querying tables anymore?
No, it's not. It's more like understanding and answering questions like, why didn't something happen? So before, you could simply ask a question, okay, how many students do I have? But if you create graph and ontology, you create the IQ layer on top of Fabric, you can now ask, why did my students drop? Why were the applicants low this semester? So these kind of questions need to have proper semantic understanding, and that's where Fabric IQ picks it.
So how does this connect to the broader Microsoft ecosystem?
So it has native connectors. It has intelligence which is connecting directly to Microsoft AI Foundry. It connects to your Microsoft 365 applications. It connects to Dynamics 365, 365 Copilot, and the tools that executives already use, including PowerPoint.
So what are the key takeaways for us in this?
So Fabric isn't just a data platform. It's the foundation for how institutions run. It knows how to reason and also act with the data and insights at scale.
And it's also an intelligence platform.
So I have this video coming up which would describe how this product is, what it offers, and let's just take a look at it.
Power your AI transformation by bringing all your teams and data together on one complete AI-powered data platform, Microsoft Fabric. With one lake, you get an open and AI-ready data lake for the entire organization that can connect to data from anywhere in multiple ways, so that all users are working from the same copy across analytics engines, from data integration to data engineering, data science to real-time intelligence. Your data professionals have all the tools they need in a pre-integrated and optimized SaaS environment, and they can extend Fabric further with native industry-specific workloads. With the new Fabric databases, you can provision simple, autonomous, and AI-optimized databases in seconds, ready to unlock innovative new scenarios for AI transformation. For large volumes of in-motion data, you can use real-time intelligence to adjust, transform, and explore data for instant insights, and you can define criteria to trigger downstream actions. All this intelligence can then securely flow to Power BI, Microsoft 365 applications your people use every day, informing their decision-making with insights right where and when they need data the most. And everything is backed by category-leading security, governance, and compliance capabilities. Plus, Fabric empowers your people to accelerate productivity with Copilot and built-in generative AI features. All your data, all your teams, all in one place. This is Microsoft Fabric.
I love this video. It basically captures everything I want to say.
How are your AI?
So this brings us to the next topic, Fabric as data intelligence platform.
So how does Microsoft Fabric move beyond the traditional analytics and continuously turn raw data into real measurable outcome?
Since we're actually focused now on higher ed, today I would like to take a case. Think of it like advising a student through their entitlement journey. You start by collecting information from multiple sources: admissions data, grades, attendance, and engagement. Bringing this into one student record, that is the part of ingestion. You then interpret that data using shared academic definitions, enrich it with patterns and predictions like the risk of attrition, and reason over it to determine the best next action, such as outreach or academic support. When this action is taken, the outcome is whether the student approves or not. The feeds back into the system, making future recommendations smarter. Microsoft Fabric does the same, take for institution data, continuously learning and improving outcomes across any institution. So once you have the data that you have ingested, you understand it. You apply the shared definitions. That is the semantic model. You enrich the data using your analytics and predictive signals. This could be any data science flow. You could train a model, you could create a model and even use it. So you add the risk scores, the threats, and the predictions that you might want to add. Then you reason with the data agents. Is this correct? Is it going to work for the student? So AI identifies your at-risk students and explains you why are they at risk. The next action, the next portion of this is the action. Once you have these insights, you need to decide and you need to have the AI take action instead of you. So this platform enables you, whether you want to trigger advisor outreach, you want to trigger an email, you want to trigger any Power Automate workflows, or you want to trigger a data pipeline. All of these actions could be taken right within the platform. The next portion that comes in is learning. So continuous improvement has to be taken care of. Whatever you're providing as output goes back as a feedback into the reinforcement learning pipelines. And then we get back to our good old ingestion, where we keep ingesting data. Demo time. Now we're going to show you how data agents work within Fabric and how these are exposed to Copilot through AI Foundry. So before I go to the demo, I would like for you guys to know what is a data agent. So we've talked about unified data and intelligence, but what does it look like for end users? So it looks like you are being able to chat directly with your data. Within Microsoft Fabric, users can ask questions in natural language and use the platform which has OneLay and the semantic models that you have created within your data pipelines to find the right data, generate intelligent summaries, and return accurate and contextual answers or summaries.
So is this limited to any type of data or any system?
Exactly. So the data that lives within warehouses, lakehouses, databases, or your semantic models, these are picked up and Fabric brings it together. It binds it together for the data agents to understand. And then they reason over this governed data and come up with responses.
So what is the value it is bringing here? Is it just like speed and a quick access to the data?
Yes, including that there are many. You do not need to rely on the analysts anymore. You go and you talk to your data agents. It's going to bring you the data and the insights along with the reason why did it come up to a conclusion. So here is a use case that I want to be see. So from analyst dependency to AI-driven answers. If you pay attention to here, this is how it would have been done before, or in some cases, this is how it has been happening in the organization. So an executive needs to check some data, it needs some information and some summary. So how are the enrollment rates impacting retention this semester? Now what happens? The executive asks the analyst for insights. They are gonna interpret the question. They will write the SQL queries or the BI queries which would fetch them the data. It is manually analyzed and validated. The results are packaged into a report, dashboard, or let's say a verbal summary. And then the follow-up questions restart this whole cycle. The limitations of this is that it sometimes takes hours, sometimes days, depending on what kind of question you ask. And there is analyst dependency. So if the analyst is on leave, you have to find an alternative to get that data. There is high risk of misinterpretation between understanding what you actually want and automatically. Insights are returned instantly with explanations and follow-up questions happen in real time. The answer is in seconds, no analyst bottleneck. It is aware of your semantic and business responses. It is governed, secure, and trusted. It is faster with more confident decisions as you know where did that data actually come from. So with this, I'll be jumping on to the demo.
While Shekhar is bringing up the demo, how many of you guys tried data agents in Fabric?
How many of you guys are aware of data agents in Fabric? Nice. And how many of you guys are aware that it can be used as a knowledge source in your AI Foundry?
So let's just quickly see what it actually does. This is my Fabric Carfa, where I am interacting with the data agent, or moreover, I'm actually working with it on its development. So on the left portion, you will see something called Explorer. The Explorer has data and set up to option key. When you click on add data, it's going to give you option to add your AI search, that is your vector database, or you could add a data source from within the Fabric. And now you can see that any kind of model, report, semantic layer, or a database that I have within my Fabric could be used as a data source within my agent. The native connectivity is there. All I have to do is just choose it and connect. When I see my database, let's say for this one I have picked an example of student database. We have many tables, namely advisor, attendance, courses, enrollments, financials, and students. These actually define where the student is enrolled, what are the student details, what is their attendance, what are the courses that they enroll to, and the financials, whether they're getting some scholarship, the paid sick leave, etc. We've also got details about each of the course with course code, course ID, course name. We've got which student enrolled into which course. We've got financials of multiple, you can see fields like balance, scholarship, student ID, and lastly, the student details. Now, if I want to restrict any portion or any part of this data, I can simply uncheck it and it will vanish from the memory of this data agent. So it's not going to access those kind of informations. This way you have complete control on which agent gets which kind of data. Now, there are multiple things that we could do with this. I will be catering to one query at least from the audience if you want to ask any question on this data. Before we do that, let's just ask some quick questions. So I'm new, I do not know what are the courses that we offer. Simple question, right? You would go look at the courses table, you see what are the records there, and you'll come back to me with that decision saying these are the courses that we are working with. So now, do you guys actually know the step that I just told you has been performed by this agent? Many agents do not tell you this, but here we have a complete analysis of how this conclusion was taken care of. So when we go look at it, it says it analyzed the student SQL database for listing all the courses currently offered, including course code, course name, and department. This is prompt rewriting, which is based on the understanding of my data models. So if you see, the query was created directly, where it selected the details from dbo.courses. Now let's get a little complex with this. Just to make it a little more complex, now I'm asking which students are actually taking scholarships. Now you should see that I did not define how is my scholarship stored. I did not define how does the student actually qualify for a scholarship. And if you see the prompts that we have given, it's nothing. It's solely working on its understanding of the data. Those are some pre-filled instructions that actually tell you how you can put something here and make it ready, but we're not going to use it. So see, I use something like this. So I had a reloaded prompt.
By the way, these data agents are still in preview. So which means like there is continuous development going on in this, right?
So the GA for it was supposed to be first quarter, so it should be out soon. But if you go look at it, it goes and checks, lists all the students who have a scholarship, included in names and student IDs. It selected the stick student IDs, names, last name from students. It created a join with the financials on the student ID where the scholarship field is greater than 0. Now, understanding of this complete data set, its fields, it was all with this agent within Fabric. There was no separate semantic layer or understanding of the data created anyway. And once you have an ontology in place, you could ask specific questions like applicants instead of students, even though this table says students. So these are few of the things that you could do with. Now, anyone who would like to try any prompt here, any query that they want to try?
Can you ask it what is the percentage increase in average balance year over year?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, but let's see how. Say that.
Percentage increase in average balance year over year, or you've tried turn return since then? But this used to be a financial table.
Let's see. I have no clue how it will respond, but let's see. Do you have even a tougher one? I'm just wondering.
I could try to print you a tougher one.
Okay. So it analyzed the database, calculating the average balance for each term and the percentage increase from one term to the next. So it definitely understood it very well. Let's see the query that it produces. Ooh. So now, with average balance as term, now this is an aggregate that it created. It took the financials data, it grouped it by term, it got the average, and then it selected the data where the average was over as previous average balance. Then it created the percentage, as you see LAG over by this into 100. This is where it calculates the percentage. So you see the fall 24 average balance has 225, spring previous average balance was 225, and percentage increase is -100. So I need to actually see the data because it's demo data, it's not accurate. But if you see the query, it's pretty accurate and a complex one, which your analyst would do for you, maybe within an hour.
So this is connected to the data, the semantic.
No, so there is a need to create your semantic layer in order to understand.
For us over here,
Sorry?
can you repeat his question so they understand?
Okay, so the question that was asked is, do we not need to create the semantic layer and just work with the database directly? So for this demo, we have really small data set and really small values. And the semantic layer actually introduces your business terminology. Because when I go and talk to my CEO or my bosses, I'm never saying Royal Cyber. I say RC has done this. Now what does RC actually mean? That synonym is an acronym for Royal Cyber. Even more on that, you could say some terminology like banking has it, we use tokens. Somehow they say sometimes there are card tokens for each person. We have PAN numbers, account numbers, it could be customer name, customer numbers, customer ID. So these values could be stored as just ID within my table. But the understanding of these various terms, it could be a PAN, it could be customer ID, customer name. So that understanding no more has to be created separately. That's where your IQ and ontology layer comes in. I hope this answer helps you. Any other question that we might have, or anyone who wants to try a query?
I've got a question not about this. It's kind of it's about specific to our data environment or.
Our data warehouse is a GCP. To get that into Long Lake, is that possible, or do we have to use mirroring?
To get our data warehouse into Long Lake, or is there another way to do that?
So I like to answer this question in two ways. Do you want to keep your analytics and transactions separate? That's my question to you first.
That's above my degree.
So see, that's where my consultation kicks in. If you want your transaction and your analytical queries to be separate, which is the ideal scenario, that's where you mirror your database, which is technically free for a specific amount of storage within Fabric. So the same data in real time comes into your Fabric and you run your analytics on top of it rather than hitting the actual database and consuming the compute that is ready for your production database. So that's where mirroring comes in. But if you want to move entire data lake from your GCP into Microsoft for other benefits and the cost, that's when you want to move something completely through native connectors. We have over 300 connectors to all the sources that you could imagine right now. All this industry standard sources like S3, GCP, BigQuery, Hadoop, we've got connectors for everything. We've got connectors for on-premise databases, SQL servers, and many more. So it makes it really convenient to get the data because that's where people are very, very hesitant. So Microsoft made sure that you will not have to be hesitant. Another one?
Sorry, one last question.
So for this to work, the naming of the columns has to be consistent and within natural language verbiage. So if we had our data in there and it's got some column names like, field 1 _ 23, like, it's not going to work. it's all predicated basically on having your data owns needs things that make sense, right?
Yeah. So this is exactly the reason why we have ontology in place. This is what I was trying to make the case for. Imagine me as a developer. I'm lazy. I do not follow naming conventions. I don't like to say balance. I just put BA.
Right.
Is this business analyst? Is this barbarian? Is this bachelor's? You don't. So ontology creates that understanding. So imagine if I were to tell you that go and change the name of the column there. Could you imagine where all could your code actually make? All the applications that you're working with, all of the pipelines, all of your existing sources or the applications which are top on of the data are going to fail. So you can't do that. In order to do it, it's very complex to create this understanding. That's when ontology, Fabric IQ kicks in. But yeah, I'm very happy to answer those questions. Anyone else? Amazing. So I'll just quickly show you guys how this is now exposed to AI Foundry. The same bot is now available for me to use within AI Foundry. So I can ask any of those questions. Now, where does the magic come in? I can add a data source as one of the tools. So the data agent that we just created is now being used as a tool within this agent. So you could expose multiple Fabric data agents throughout your domains, throughout your tables. Let's say there's a set of tables that you need for the accounting department. There's a separate set of tables that you need for the financial department, the students admissions department, the research department. So you make different data agents for different use cases. You create a cluster of agents. I call it the agent army. And then you expose it to a master agent or workflows within AI Foundry and expose it organization-wide through Copilot or on Teams. So that's the beauty of data agents. The connection is pretty intuitive. You just have to identify the artifact ID and put it there. And you can ask the same questions. So I'm just ask the same copy-paste. So AI Foundry is the tool which gives you guardrails, it gives you token usage, it gives you a brief analysis and really deep insights on how your AI and LLMs are working. If you want to work with another large language model, you could use Claude, you could use Meta's LLM, you could use OpenAI and many other large language models. So what it does is, it went and it hit my Fabric data agent, which came with this response, which was coming in my data agent, and it was shown to this AI Foundry. So this is how you create a pod of data agents, an army of data agents, and then make them work in an agentic manner with the orchestration taken care by AI Foundry. So it knows which data agent to hit at one time. So that's pretty much it. I've got few more slides to show. This is where we come in, where we help. We help deploy Fabric. We help with connecting and ingesting your data. We work heavily with a set of ML and AI engineers to model and transform your landscape, enable AI and Copilot to your workflows, automating these workflows and governing it. We've done like amazing use cases where we took the automation up to 80 to 95% for order taking, consulting students, and many others. We help with discovering and planning how the data estate has to be changed, how to scale and evolve, and make your organization data ready. We also do a bunch of Microsoft collaborative Fabric workshops. So we call it XIAD event. That is a set of dashboard in a day, Fabric analysts in a day. We also do data agents in a day now. So these are some of the events that we do. After this, we have 3 experts, including me. We've got Brian, we've got Alex, and me. If you have any questions, feel free to connect with us or ask anybody that you might want to have answered. We're all certified and happy to be of any help. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. So, as we're closing out, this is a networking event. There's lunch right back there. Please continue to kind of have the conversations. We're also joined by Microsoft here. There's other Microsoft experts as well. Thank you all so much for coming. And I hope that you learned and gleaned a lot from this presentation. One of the biggest things, these things are, it really is, I love your questions too, because a lot of institutions are hybrid cloud, right? They're multi-cloud strategies and everything. So as you can see, Fabric can take care of all of those challenges for you. And as we talked about before with Copilot, we do see Copilot from Microsoft's perspective as the window to your AI. Okay, so as you guys are noodling and thinking on things, please, by all means, continue to talk about what's been working for your institutions, what's not been working for your institutions. All of you guys here are hand selected, and when you guys registered, it was for leadership. So you guys are all a huge brain trust, you know, way smarter than me. So you're joined here so much. So I just really want you guys to talk. All right. So with that said, thank you guys so much, and please just dig in and enjoy.